You never deserved him, Amelia. He was always my father first. Lyndon's words cut through the somber silence of the funeral home, sharp as the lightning that flashed outside. I turned to face my sister, her eyes blazing with a fury I'd seen too many times before. This isn't the time or place, Lyndon, I hissed, acutely aware of the mourners watching us. Oh, it's exactly the right time, she spat back. Now that he's gone, you can't hide behind Daddy's favorite anymore. My name is Amelia, and this is how my father's funeral became the battleground for a war that had been brewing for years. I glanced at my mother, Daphne, who stood frozen by the casket, her face a mask of grief and shock. My husband, Cal, squeezed my hand, a silent reminder to keep my composure. We're here to remember Dad, not rehash your petty grievances, I said, trying to keep my voice low and steady. Lyndon laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed through the room. Petty? You have no idea what I've been through, what he put me through while you were living your perfect little life. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows as if nature itself was mirroring our family's turmoil. I could feel the eyes of friends and relatives on us, their whispers barely audible over the rumble of thunder. Ladies, a calm voice interjected. It was Morgan, our family friend and Dad's longtime business partner. Let's take this somewhere private, shall we? Before I could respond, Lyndon shoved past me, nearly knocking over a flower arrangement. There's nothing to discuss. She got everything she wanted in life, and now she'll get everything in death too. As she stormed out, the funeral director approached, looking nervous. MS. Amelia, I hate to interrupt, but there's a matter of your father's will. There's something unusual we need to discuss. I nodded, my mind reeling. What could be so important that it couldn't wait until after we'd laid Dad to rest? And what secrets had he been keeping that could drive such a wedge between Lyndon and me? As I followed the director to a small office, I caught a glimpse of a photo of Dad on the memorial board. His kind eyes seemed to hold a sadness I'd never noticed before. And I couldn't shake the feeling that there was so much more to my father than I'd ever known. The storm raged on, and with it, the certainty that my life was about to change forever. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, Dad's familiar scrawl across the front. I'd found it tucked away in his old desk, hidden beneath a false bottom drawer. My heart raced as I carefully opened it. What's that? Cal asked, peering over my shoulder. A letter from Dad, I replied, unfolding the paper. It's about the cabin. As I read, my confusion grew. Dad wrote about a project he'd been working on for years, something tied to the cabin we'd inherited. He mentioned helping those who needed it most, and making amends for past mistakes. Cal, I think there's more to this cabin than we realized, I said, handing him the letter. He skimmed it quickly. Sounds like your father was involved in something big. But why all the secrecy? Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Mom, looking exhausted but determined. Amelia, we need to talk, she said, stepping inside. About your father, and the things he never told you. We settled in the living room, the tension palpable. Mom took a deep breath and began. Your father. He wasn't always the man you knew. In his younger days, he made some questionable choices. That cabin, it was more than just a getaway. It was his redemption. What do you mean, Mom? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She sighed. Eli used to be involved with some rough people. He got in over his head, did things he regretted. But he turned his life around, and that cabin became a symbol of his change. The pieces started falling into place. The project he mentioned in his letter, was it about helping others? Mom nodded. He wanted to give back, to help people who were struggling like he once did. But he kept it quiet, worried his past might come back to haunt him, or worse, affect you girls. And Lyndon? Does she know about this? A shadow crossed Mom's face. Your sister. She found out some of it years ago. It's part of why things have been so strained between you two. She felt betrayed, like your father was living a lie. I sat back, overwhelmed. The father I thought I knew suddenly seemed like a stranger. Yet his actions, the secret project, the desire to help others, aligned with the kind, compassionate man I'd always loved. There's more, Amelia, Mom said softly. Your father left something at the cabin, something he wanted you to find. I think it's time you went there and uncovered the truth for yourself. As she spoke, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. What other secrets would I uncover at the cabin? And how would they change everything I thought I knew about my family? The cabin loomed before me, a weathered sentinel in the woods. As I approached, memories of childhood summers flooded back, tinged now with the weight of secrets. Inside, dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through grimy windows. I ran my fingers along the familiar surfaces, searching for clues. In the main room, an old chest caught my eye locked, of course. "What are you hiding, Dad?" I murmured, tugging at the unyielding lock. A folded paper on the mantel drew my attention. Unfolding it revealed a hand-drawn map of the surrounding forest, dotted with cryptic symbols and notations. As I studied the map, the cabin door burst open. Lyndon stood there, her face a storm of emotions. "What the hell are you doing here?" she demanded. I straightened, clutching the map. "I could ask you the same thing." Lyndon's eyes darted to the paper in my hand, then to the locked chest. "Found anything interesting?" Her tone dripped with sarcasm. "Lyndon, please. We need to talk about Dad, about what he was really doing here." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you want to talk. After years of being Daddy's perfect little girl, now you care about the truth. I never knew." "Save it," Lyndon snapped. "I know all about his project, his pathetic attempt at redemption. Did Mom tell you how he used to run with criminals? How he nearly destroyed our family?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. "Is that why you've been so angry all these years? You have no idea what it's been like, living with his lies, watching him dote on you while I knew the truth." I took a step towards her, my hand outstretched. "Lyndon, we can figure this out together. Whatever Dad did." "I don't want your help," she snarled, lunging for the map. We grappled, and in the struggle, I stumbled backwards into the wall. A hollow thud echoed through the cabin. We froze, staring at each other, then at the wall. Slowly, I pressed against the spot again. Another hollow sound. "A hidden compartment," I breathed. Lyndon's eyes gleamed with a mix of curiosity and greed. "Open it." Heart pounding, I felt along the edges until I found a catch. The panel swung open, revealing a small safe. "It needs a combination," I said, examining the dial. Lyndon pushed me aside. "Move. I'll crack it." As she fiddled with the safe, I noticed a small envelope tucked behind it, addressed to me in Dad's handwriting. I slipped it into my pocket unnoticed. "Damn it," Lyndon cursed, unable to open the safe. She whirled on me. "You know the combination, don't you? He told you." "No, I swear." But Lyndon was already storming out, leaving me alone with more questions than answers, and the weight of a hidden letter burning in my pocket. I burst through the front door, my mind reeling from the cabin confrontation. Cal jumped up from the couch, concern etched on his face. "Amelia, what happened?" I collapsed into his arms, the weight of secrets and family strife crushing down on me. "It's worse than we thought, Cal. Dad's past, Lyndon's anger. It's all connected." Before I could explain further, a sharp knock interrupted us. Mom stood on the porch, her face grave. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside. "All of us." I tensed, sensing the storm about to break. "Mom, I was just at the cabin. There's a hidden safe and Lyndon." "I know." Mom cut me off. "Lyndon called me, raving about conspiracies and hidden fortunes. It's time you knew everything." We settled in the living room, the air thick with unspoken truths. I pulled out the letter I'd found behind the safe, my hands shaking. "Before we start, there's this," I said, offering it to Mom. She shook her head. "It's addressed to you, Amelia. You should read it." With a deep breath, I unfolded the paper and began to read aloud. "My dearest Amelia, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered more than I ever wanted you to know. The cabin was meant to be my redemption, a way to right the wrongs of my past. But I fear I've only created more pain for our family. The safe contains evidence of my mistakes and my attempts to make amends. The combination is your birthday. You were always my new beginning. I hope you can forgive me and finish what I started. Love, Dad." Silence fell as I finished reading. Cal squeezed my hand, offering silent support. Mom's voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke. "Your father was desperate once. He got involved with loan sharks, did things he regretted deeply. The cabin and the project, it was all to help people avoid the same mistakes. But why keep it a secret?" I asked, my voice cracking. "To protect you girls. And because he was ashamed." A commotion outside drew our attention. Lyndon stormed in, her eyes wild. "Having a little family meeting without me," she sneered. "Trying to decide how to cut me out of my inheritance." "Lyndon, please," Mom pleaded. "This isn't about money. It's about healing our family." "Family?" Lyndon laughed bitterly. "We stopped being a family the moment Dad chose his precious project over us." I stood facing my sister. "That's not true, Lyndon. Dad was trying to make things right. If you'd just listen." "I'm done listening to lies," Lyndon shouted. She pulled out a crumpled paper from her pocket. "I found this at the cabin. It's a deed transfer. Dad was planning to sign over everything to some charity. He was going to leave us with nothing." The room erupted into chaos. As accusations flew and old wounds reopened, I clutched Dad's letter, wondering if there was any way to bridge the chasm that had opened in our family. I sat across from Morgan in his dimly lit office, surrounded by stacks of files and old newspapers. His eyes were tired but determined as he pushed a folder towards me. "Amelia, what I'm about to show you might change everything you thought you knew about your father," he said gravely. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Inside were financial records, old photographs, and newspaper clippings. One headline caught my eye: "Local businessman linked to charity scandal." Dad was involved in this? I whispered, disbelief coloring my voice. Morgan nodded. Eli was trying to make amends. The charity was his way of giving back, of helping those who'd fallen into the same traps he once did. As I pored over the documents, a pattern emerged. Dad had been funneling money into the charity for years, far more than our family could afford. The cabin was meant to be a haven, a place for rehabilitation. But something went wrong, Morgan continued. The project was sabotaged. Money disappeared, and the charity's reputation was ruined. A chill ran down my spine as I remembered Lyndon's bitter words and desperate actions. "You don't think?" Before Morgan could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Cal. "Lyndon's at the house. She's threatening to go public with everything. Come home now." I rushed back, my mind reeling. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Lyndon pacing on the porch, waving a stack of papers. "Finally decided to show up?" she sneered as I approached. "I've got it all here, Dad's dirty secrets, his precious charity, everything." "Lyndon, please," I pleaded. "You don't understand. Dad was trying to help people." "Help people," she laughed bitterly. "He was a fraud, Amelia. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." Suddenly, a realization hit me. "It was you, wasn't it? You sabotaged Dad's project." Lyndon's face paled, then contorted with rage. He was going to give everything away. Our inheritance, our future. All for some misguided attempt at redemption. "So you destroyed it?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You ruined everything he worked for?" "I protected what was ours." Lyndon shouted. "And I'd do it again." As we stood there, the weight of betrayal and shattered trust hanging between us, I knew our family would never be the same. But I also knew I had to finish what Dad started, to honor his memory and make things right. "Lyndon," I said softly, "we have a choice. We can tear each other apart, or we can try to understand Dad's vision and make it a reality. Which is it going to be?" The answer hung in the air unspoken as we faced the crossroads that would define our family's future. The tension in the room was palpable as I faced Lyndon. The evidence of her betrayal spread out on the table between us. Cal stood by my side, a silent pillar of support, while Mom sat with her head in her hands. "How could you, Lyndon?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad's project meant everything to him. Lyndon's eyes flashed with a mix of defiance and fear. "You don't understand, Amelia. I had no choice. No choice." I slammed my hand on the table, causing everyone to flinch. "You deliberately sabotaged Dad's charity, destroyed his reputation. And for what? Money." "It wasn't just about the money," Lyndon shouted, her composure cracking. "It was about being seen, being valued. Dad always favored you, always trusted you more. I was just trying to protect what should have been mine." The raw pain in her voice caught me off guard. For a moment, I saw not my vindictive sister, but a wounded child desperate for approval. "Lyndon," Mom interjected softly, "your father loved you both equally. He struggled to show it sometimes." Lyndon laughed bitterly. "Equally? Is that why Amelia got to be part of his secret project while I was left in the dark?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Lyndon, Dad never told me about the project either. I've been discovering it all just like you have." "Liar." Lyndon spat, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "It's true," I insisted. "And now that I know what Dad was trying to do, I want to finish it. To make things right. But I can't do it without you." Lyndon's face contorted with conflicting emotions. "Why would you want my help after what I've done?" "Because you're my sister," I said simply. "And because I think this is what Dad would have wanted. For us to work together, to heal not just our family but others too." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lyndon's shoulders sagged, and she began to cry. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I never meant for it to go this far. I felt so lost, so angry." I moved around the table and, hesitantly, put my arms around her. "I know, Lyndon. I know." As we embraced, I felt years of resentment and misunderstanding begin to melt away. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in years, I felt hope for our family's future. "So," I said softly, Will you help me finish what Dad started? Lyndon pulled back, wiping her eyes. She looked at me, then at Mom and Cal, before nodding slowly. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The living room was thick with tension as our family gathered for what felt like a final reckoning. Mom sat rigidly on the couch, her eyes darting between Lyndon and me. Cal stood by the window, a silent guardian. Morgan, invited at my insistence, occupied an armchair, his presence a reminder of Dad's unfinished business. Lyndon broke the silence first, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know where to begin. How about the truth? I suggested, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. All of it, Lyndon. She nodded, taking a shaky breath. I was drowning in debt. When I found out about Dad's charity project, I saw it as my chance to fix everything. I never meant for it to go so far. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh, Lyndon, why didn't you come to us? Because I was ashamed. Lyndon cried. I'd made such a mess of my life, and Amelia always seemed so perfect. I felt a pang of guilt. Had I really been so blind to my sister's struggles? That's no excuse for what you did, Cal interjected, his voice firm but not unkind. Lyndon nodded miserably. I know. I've ruined everything. Not everything, I said softly. All eyes turned to me. Dad's project, his vision for helping people. We can still make that happen. Morgan leaned forward. Amelia's right. The foundation is there. With some work, we could revive the charity, maybe even expand it. But how? Lyndon asked. After what I did, who would trust us? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to propose. We come clean. We tell the truth about what happened, make amends, and show people we're committed to doing better. The room fell silent as the weight of my words sank in. It would mean public scrutiny, potential legal consequences, and a long road to rebuilding trust. I'll do it, Lyndon said suddenly. Whatever it takes to make this right. Mom reached out, taking both our hands. We'll do it together. As a family. I felt a surge of emotion, relief, hope, and a bittersweet sadness that Dad wasn't here to see this moment. There's something else, I said, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. I'm pregnant, and I want this child to grow up knowing the best of who we are, not the worst of what we've done. The announcement hung in the air for a moment before Mom burst into tears of joy, pulling me into a tight embrace. Even Lyndon managed a watery smile. As we hugged and cried and began to plan our next steps, I felt a shift in the air. The storm that had been brewing in our family for so long was finally beginning to clear, making way for something new and hopeful to grow in its place. The autumn leaves crunched beneath our feet as we approached the newly renovated cabin. What was once a symbol of secrets and strife now stood as a beacon of hope and redemption. The sign above the door read, Eli's Haven, a community center for second chances. Lyndon squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening. I can't believe we actually did it, she whispered. I nodded, my free hand resting on my swollen belly. Dad would be proud. As we stepped inside, we were greeted by the warmth of laughter and conversation. The main room was filled with people from all walks of life, recovering addicts, struggling families, and volunteers eager to make a difference. Mom flitted between groups, her face alight with purpose as she coordinated activities. Morgan approached us, beaming. Ladies, you've done the impossible. This place is already changing lives. Cal joined us, wrapping an arm around my waist. And it's only the beginning, he added. I watched as Lyndon moved to a group of young women, her voice soft but confident as she shared her own story of struggle and redemption. The shame that once clouded her features had given way to a quiet strength. As the day wore on, I found myself standing before Dad's old desk, now repurposed as a registration station. My fingers traced the worn wood, remembering the secrets it once held. Penny for your thoughts? Mom's voice startled me from my reverie. I turned, smiling. Just thinking about Dad. About how all of this started with his dream. She nodded, her eyes misty. He always believed in second chances. For himself, for others. I think he'd be amazed to see how you girls have brought that dream to life. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow through the windows, our family gathered on the porch. The air was crisp with possibility, so different from the stormy day of Dad's funeral that felt like a lifetime ago. Lyndon raised a mug of hot cider. To Dad, she said softly, and to new beginnings. We echoed the toast, our voices blending in the twilight. As I sipped my tea, I felt a flutter in my belly, my child, Dad's grandchild, stirring with life and promise. In that moment, I realized that Dad's true legacy wasn't the cabin or even the charity. It was the love and resilience he'd instilled in us, the ability to forgive and grow stronger through adversity. As night fell and stars began to twinkle above the trees, I looked at the faces of my family. Mom, radiant with renewed purpose. Cal, steady and supportive. And Lyndon, finally at peace with herself and her place in our family. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, bound by the unbreakable ties of love and shared history. Dad's journey had ended, but ours was just beginning. And as I stood there, surrounded by the warmth of family and the promise of tomorrow, I knew that this,